My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into TechPath. Let's get into it today. We're going to have a special guest for you guys. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a good one. I do want to thank our sponsor, and that is iTrust Capital. If you're looking at a crypto IRA or you want to get into gold and even silver, you can do all of that over on iTrust Capital. Very easy to set up. Just visit their website over at itrustcapital.com. You can join over 200,000 other people that are out there setting up their own IRA. Just use our link down below. It's going to get you a $100 funding reward to get rolling. Okay, I want to introduce our guest, and that is former Congressman Dr. Ron Paul coming into the show. How are you, Dr. Paul?
Doing well, Paul. Nice to be with you today.
Excellent. So let's just dive into a couple of things. I want to talk a little bit about your opinion really around what's happening with DOGE, and DOGE meaning the Department of Government Efficiency, both what Elon Musk has been able to start on here recently, but also what the potential future might look like. First of all, give us kind of a rundown of where you see this may be working for the U.S. government.
Well, let's hope it's successful. And they are ambitious. They have some good people in there, and they have very good intentions. But from my viewpoint of having been in Washington for a little bit and spent time in politics, it's a long way to go because people don't like to see anything cut. You know, somebody told me once, I'm all for cutting, but he explained to me, Ron, you have to remember everybody has a but. But yeah, cut everybody else, but not. So it's good. I participate loosely with them, making suggestions, but it's so overwhelmingly big. We're in $36 trillion of debt, and as this grows exponentially, they're going to just have to worry about the interest rates. And that is why Trump is saying, lower the interest rates. Well, the market eventually will tell about the interest rates, and just paying the interest is going to be a great burden. But all the suggestions and improving on items, it might lower prices here and there, but that's not the answer to the inflation that everybody's worried about.
So, Dr. Paul, do you think that the Trump administration, at least this time around, is a different animal from a government side of things? Because we've seen the cabinet selections that are considerably outside the normal purview of what we've seen in D.C. before. Do you feel like this time around Trump maybe has a little bit more tactile capability of executing on some of these things, such as DOGE?
Well, I certainly hope so, and I think so, and I think that's the case, but time will tell exactly what will happen. But to me, the most exciting part about this is Trump has has recognized that, and he's a genius at politics, bringing different groups together. Who would have ever predicted 10, 15 years ago that he would be able to be the cheerleader for the evangelicals, you know? But he's been able to bring people together in that sense. And the one thing that I like is since he's been elected, he talks about libertarians. And even before his election, he would reach out to us and to talk to us about issues and things. So he's very respectful. And I don't think that happened last go around. And that to me is exciting. But I think it's not only a reflection of his character and how he operates, but it's also a sign that the people are more libertarian. And so some of these things that are going on now, the left are totally dumbfounded, about what he's saying and the people liking it. But I think the country, a lot of people don't believe this because, if you measure by Libertarian Party or something, where are they going? So I think that Trump has done a lot of good by reaching out. And I think it's a reflection that our message of limited government, in a true sense of the word, especially the interest I have in the foreign policy, Trump has spoken out on that, but he's also has some weak spots on what we should be doing in foreign policy.
All right, so you're saying that it's possible that this whole psychological effect on government now with where Trump is, and also I think he's crossed the lines a couple of times, obviously with Bobby and also with Tulsi Gabbard, we're starting to see a complete different framework of how maybe DC is going to look like in the future. With that being the case, and you listen to what Elon Musk has been saying, because he's exploring blockchain technology possibly to start to track government spending. And this is something that we talk about on the show a lot. Blockchain possibly can be used as a very transparent method in which government spending can be truly tracked. If Elon Musk, pretty much I would say, argue that he's the Einstein of our time, could get this in place, would you be for that?
With caution, because keeping track of the Pentagon, because that's a monster, or keeping track, and you open up the Federal Reserve, that's all good, and I'm all for that, because especially the Federal Reserve that I've talked about the most, if they're exposed, the people might wake up and realize we don't need them. We got to get rid of them. You know, Trump is a special type of individual, and he was receptive, and I think he's more informed than 4 years ago. So I think that is all good. And but technology, we should use it to the hilt. But there's a point you have to be practical. I would say some of the proposals now that good technology and the following of cryptocurrencies and all, we can solve every problem in the world. We could pay off all the debt. There's some grandiose plans with technology. People shouldn't fool themselves, because technology will have limits, and we don't have to worry about where the limits come from. They always come from the marketplace.
Yeah, well, one of the things with what Musk is doing is hopefully we'll start to see a ticker or some sort of tracking of this. Back to your point of why do we even need it in the first place? Maybe there will be a scoring system of saying this is a department or an area that we've axed, and here was the score of its importance level, to your point. So I think trying to get away of some of this overreach on government is a great opportunity. I want to play a clip for you. You'll be able to hear this. It's of Vice President J.D. Vance talking a little bit more around FEMA and where this might be going. Take a look.
We've got to get the bureaucrats out of the way and get the aid to the people who need it most. FEMA in North Carolina and California and Florida with some of the hurricanes has often been a disaster. And it's not because we don't have good people at FEMA, it's because bureaucratic red tape and garbage prevents the rapid deployment of resources to the people who need it most.
But the states are now going to have to do this themselves?
The president is trying to encourage us to reform the way that we deliver emergency response.
FEMA is the emergency management agency in the United States. Some of you might have heard of Hurricane Sandy. The books took 11 years to close. Accounting took 11 years to close after the hurricane. Deloitte is building a system that will close the books in real time. Once the last payment is made, all the books are reconciled. And that's all possible because of the Avalanche architecture.
All right, so the two statements there, one was, of course, J.D. Vance talking about the problem that we've seen with just the misspending, et cetera, not being able to really get a balanced budget out of these from FEMA. And then, of course, one of the technology architectures like Avalanche who's saying, hey, we've already done this when we're doing it currently, of being able to close these books almost immediately to be able to avoid many of the problems in terms of over expenditure and not getting it to the right person. Blockchain is showing that that can be done. Do you agree with using blockchain in those kind of scenarios like FEMA?
Yeah, use it, but I think there's a bigger picture of the philosophy of government. I emphasize a whole lot the difference between natural law and nihilism. And you're dealing with people who don't even believe in truth. They pretend they look for it, but they don't even believe in it. And I think that has to be dealt with. I think accepting and emphasizing that there is a principle that we follow, and that is the non-aggression principle. Everybody knows, for as long as we've had history, that you're not allowed to lie, cheat, steal, and kill. Yet it goes on because there's not enough people who accept those principles, and that's the way it's been, and that's the way it'll continue. But we don't want to ever endorse it. Any reform that cuts back on government spending or increases even an iota of freedom. But the judicial system, I'm optimistic that they're going to really help cleaning up some of that mess in the system.
Yeah.
I think this administration is going to be much better on restraining the IRS. So there's a lot of good things ahead. But I will always be emphasizing the big picture and what was the political and principle that we're dealing with.
Well, I think to your point, the bigger picture and a lot of this underlying government overreach that we've seen for, really the past 4 decades If blockchain is capable of doing this transparent audit, which is really what it's designed to do, it's an open ledger that's able of, from a technology standpoint to really start to advance on this. And if it does and can do that job, I think it solves the problem that you're talking about. Now, I want to jump over to something that I think is a passion of yours, and that is the Federal Reserve. Whether we audit the Fed or in the Fed, here's a YouTube video of you talking about this 15 years ago. So you've been at it for a while in reference to the Fed itself. What would be better right now, truly auditing the Fed, or just eliminating it in some way? I know those are two crazy ideas, but they could actually become reality. Your thoughts?
Well, the thing you do, they should have never been started. So we have, for moral reasons, economic reasons, and constitutional reasons, we should never have had it. And they argue from the very beginning. Hamilton and Jefferson argued the case. So I do the audit because it's a practical step to wake people up.
Right.
And we got the bill passed in the House a couple times, and even now Trump is, giving verbal support to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's mentioned daily. If there's an accounting procedure that can get that information out, that would be the only reason. It shouldn't be there just to make government efficient in distribution of money. I want them to abolish it. They don't need the Department of Education all the way down. You don't want technology making the Department of Education more efficient.
Right.
That's going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen here, Dr. Paul, is that blockchain or the technology is going to open up the reality of what's really going on. Because right now we have no transparency to that point. I want to jump over to taxes and tariffs here before we let you go. And the first thing I want to hit on is Eric Trump talked a little bit about this. He's saying that it's possible that there is a confirmation that U.S.-based this is talking about crypto projects, but in general, they could be talking about IRS. But American-based crypto projects could be benefiting from zero capital gains tax. Now, if we see that kind of potential there on an investment such as that, it's likely that we'll see others of eliminating capital gains tax on certain types of investments. What are your thoughts on how that could be done, and do you think this will actually happen?
I think it might happen to a degree, but I would get rid of all these capital gains taxes. Why not do it just on real estate? Mm-hmm. And it might benefit more families. So those taxes, we should have those type of taxes, and then we wouldn't have to worry about it. But a lot of people give me the credit for really starting that whole thing, because I emphasize the fact the dollar's in danger, it's illegal, it's unconstitutional, and it ought to be legal to compete with it. And mm-hmm. I have had a bill and they allow the people to use the competing as long as you don't use fraud. But we also have encouraged, many states now have said, you can't have sales taxes or capital gain taxes on anything artificial that you use or any money, like they were taxing gold and silver.
Right.
If you go out and buy money, they tax it. See, I see debt as and inflation. You have to liquidate it. You have to liquidate the malinvestment and letting that be cleansed out so you can go back. An individual who's bankrupt, they can't keep borrowing money from the government. Governments keep borrowing by stealing it from the people.
Exactly.
By printing money, and that has to stop. The founders knew about it. They knew about the continental dollar, and they put those prohibitions in there.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned the continental dollar. That's interesting. For those of you watching right now, you should go out and do some research on that. Really understand the history of the monetary system, because it'll surprise you a little bit on really where we are today. How we ever got here is going to be a good question. I want to ask this last couple questions to you. TikTok. We've had Trump talk about this before, saying that he was going to ban it, then he wasn't going to ban it. He's now seeming to be a little bit lighter on China about possibly banning TikTok, giving it a 90-day stay. What is your opinion? Should we ban TikTok? What do you think could happen here?
Well, we shouldn't ban it. That's why we're not in the business. We shouldn't be in the business of doing that. But that would apply to my rules apply to it. If there's fraud involved, you ought to do something about it, and you should
Okay.
have authorities to do that. So I think that I mean, I wanted to go freely, but what about the president? It bothers me how much power has gone to the president. You know, within minutes he can announce, okay, yeah, we're going to ban it. They can't do that. Okay, we'll do this. Okay, we're going to tell you that a country what to do. 5 minutes later, he raises tariffs on that country. The president shouldn't be able to announce one day something here and something other. It should be done by the way the free market is done.
Well, if TikTok does get whether it's forced to divest to American companies, and there are companies out here now within the blockchain space that believe they can expose and also show that this is something that, we were having problems, for a standpoint of national security. I think it would get to your point. If there's nefarious situations that are taking place, yes, we should do something about those. But I think blockchain will most likely change that. Last question to you is tariffs. What is your position on Trump's tariff? It seems to be affinity to really just using tariffs as a complete elimination of taxes, which I think would lean toward the libertarian side. But at the same time, that would have an effect on the United States GDP and just the economy itself. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a dream. If you can put tariffs, which is a tax, and eliminate taxes, I mean, and you're going to have tariff wars. They have never been good. All the way back, even before Adam Smith, he says where you have that mercantilism and protectionism, you have more wars. And I believe that. Where goods and services cross borders, you're not likely to fight. And there's more of that when you start having these regulations. So I think tariffs are taxes, and unfortunately, it's like the inflation tax. The rich benefit from the inflation by the Fed. The people who suffer the most are the people who pay who get suffered with a high income. That's the poor and the middle class. The same way with tariffs. The products are going to go up. No, the market is too big and too wonderful. You got to believe that the marketplace, just like I started the program by saying it was the market, it was the judicial system. When the people voted, that was the jury. That was finally coming to common sense with that crazy stuff on all those charges against the president.
All right. Well, Dr. Paul, it's been great having you on today. Thank you so much for your insights. We do appreciate the time, so thanks for stopping in.
Great. Nice to be with you.
You bet. All right, you guys, if you are not in our Diamond Circle, make sure and get in. That's our own private email group. Also, jump into the Telegram group. It's a link right below that, so just click that. You can get into Telegram. I'm in there all the time chatting with you guys, so make sure and do that. If you're not following me out there on X, it's just @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.